In the early days, their love story was the talk of their close-knit high society. Francesca, with her humble origins as the daughter of an antique dealer, was seen as the Cinderella who had won her prince. Fernando, ever the dashing suitor, played his role with a persuasive passion that masked his darker intentions. The wedding was a lavish affair, with every detail dripping in opulence, setting the stage for what many assumed would be a happy ever after. However, beneath the smiles and the toasts, there was a contract unspoken. Fernando had married not for love, but for lineage and legacy. He needed an heir, a continuation of the Ramos bloodline, and Francesca was chosen to fulfill this role, unbeknownst to her. As months turned into years, the initial bliss began to crumble under the weight of reality. Fernando's true nature revealed itself through his controlling behavior. Every aspect of Francesca's life was monitored and dictated, from the clothes she wore to the friends she could meet. The mansion, once a symbol of her fairy tale romance, became her prison. Francesca's movements were restricted, her communications monitored, and her life a series of scheduled appearances and orchestrated interactions. The betrayal wasn't just in Fernando's change of demeanor, it was in the realization that her marriage had been a calculated arrangement from the start. Francesca's dream of love and companionship had been sold to the highest bidder, and she was the currency exchanged in a deal she hadn't agreed to. This betrayal was the first crack in what would eventually lead to a dramatic and life-altering decision by their son, Raphael. As the initial glow of her marriage faded, Francesca was forced to confront the harsh realities of her controlled existence. Living under Fernando's scrutiny, every day was a performance where she had to play the part of the devoted wife in a script written by her husband. Fernando's demands were relentless. He expected perfection in everything, reflecting the grandeur of his social stature. Francesca found herself isolated, cut off from the world she once knew, her only companions the walls of the mansion and the silent ocean beyond. Her days began to follow a suffocating routine. Mornings were spent walking the manicured gardens, always under the watchful eyes of the household staff, who reported back to Fernando on her every move. Afternoons brought lessons on how to be the perfect socialite wife, how to speak, sit, and smile, techniques that were supposed to endear her to Fernando's high society circles. Evenings were the worst, as they often hosted parties where Francesca had to mingle and laugh, all the while feeling like a bird in a gilded cage. The mansion, with its sprawling corridors and lavish rooms, felt more like a museum than a home. Each room curated to display the perfect life they were supposed to have, not the life they actually lived. Despite the opulence that surrounded her, Francesca felt a growing emptiness inside. She realized that her autonomy had been traded for luxury, her genuine smile replaced with a mask of contentment. The control extended even to her personal thoughts and feelings, as Fernando dismissed any signs of unhappiness or dissent. She was told repeatedly how lucky she was to live in such luxury, a narrative that silenced her doubts and painted her solitude as ungratefulness. This psychological manipulation deepened her isolation, making her question her perceptions and erode her sense of self. It was in this oppressive environment that Francesca's spirit began to wane, but it was also where her resilience started to take root, setting the stage for her eventual fight for freedom. Francesca's burgeoning despair culminated in a desperate plan for escape, an attempt to reclaim the autonomy that had been so cruelly stripped from her. One particularly stifling night, after a day fraught with Fernando's criticisms and cold dismissals, Francesca found herself at the edge of the sea, the vast dark waters echoing the turmoil within her. It was here, surrounded by the relentless waves, that she decided she could no longer endure her life of gilded imprisonment. In her mind, the ocean offered a final somber freedom from the pain of her existence. With the moon casting a pale light on the water, Francesca slipped off her shoes and stepped into the cool embrace of the sea. Each step took her deeper, the water whispering promises of peace as it climbed higher, enveloping her in its cold silence. As the water reached her shoulders, then her chin, Francesca felt a momentary relief, a suspension of her burdens. However, just as the sea threatened to claim her completely, a vision shattered her resolve. Her future son calling her back to the land of the living, needing her in a world that still held glimmers of hope. At that critical moment, Irina, the maid who had silently observed Francesca's suffering, intervened. Having followed her out of concern and a whispered intuition, Irina reached out and pulled Francesca from the grasp of the ocean. They collapsed together on the sand, Francesca gasping for breath, her body shaking from cold and shock. Irina wrapped her in a blanket, her presence a silent rebuke to the thoughts of despair that had driven Francesca to the water's edge. This failed escape marked a turning point for Francesca. Though she returned to the mansion and her life of luxury, something within her had irrevocably changed. The incident by the sea had been a desperate cry for help, and Irina's rescue a lifeline she hadn't expected. This act of kindness planted seeds of a new resolve in Francesca. It wasn't just the physical saving from the waters that mattered, but the emotional awakening that she was not utterly alone. Irina became a confidant, a secret ally within the walls of the mansion, providing not only companionship, but also a glimpse of a possible future free from Fernando's control. With Irina's support, Francesca began to weave a new narrative for herself, one where escape might one day be possible not through death, but through living, a life reclaimed and reborn from the depths of despair. The aftermath of Francesca's near-fatal escape attempt brought about a delicate shift in her life's trajectory. As the days slowly warmed into months, a fragile hope began to blossom within her, nurtured by her growing bond with Irina and the secret defiance they shared against Fernando's oppressive regime. This hope was soon to be embodied in something, or rather someone, who would change Francesca's life forever: the birth of her son, Raphael. Despite the harshness of her environment, the pregnancy was a time of quiet rebellion for Francesca. It symbolized more than just the continuation of the Ramos lineage. It was a triumph of her own resilience, a tangible proof that she could still exert some control over her future. During her pregnancy, Francesca found solace in the preparation for her child's arrival, decorating the nursery, choosing names, and dreaming of the possibilities that lay in her son's future. Each kick and flutter was a reminder that she had something to fight for, something pure and untainted by the corruption of her marriage. The birth of Raphael was a watershed moment for Francesca. It was fraught with physical pain and emotional turmoil. Yet, when she held her son for the first time, the world seemed to realign itself. Here was a new beginning, a chance to right the wrongs of her past, and to give Raphael the life she had been denied. Her son's dependence on her gave Francesca a newfound strength and purpose. She dedicated herself to his care, learning to interpret his cries, his smiles, and his needs, which became her primary focus, pushing the sorrow of her marriage into the background. However, Fernando's attitude toward his wife did not soften with Raphael's arrival. If anything, his demands grew more intense, driven by his obsession with perfection and his image as a successful businessman and family man. But now, Francesca was not just fighting for herself. She was fighting for her son's future. She learned to navigate Fernando's moods and to shield Raphael from his father's colder, more dismissive side. In her son, Francesca saw a chance for redemption and escape, not just for herself, but for Raphael too. She vowed to protect him from the toxic environment of the mansion, hoping to instill in him the strength and compassion that Fernando lacked. This hope, fragile as it was, became Francesca's anchor, keeping her grounded amidst the storms that continued to rage around her. As Raphael grew from a tender infant into a curious child, his world was intricately shaped by the contrasting influences of his parents. Francesca, ever nurturing and gentle, became his beacon of love and tenderness in the often cold and demanding environment of the Ramos mansion. Fernando, on the other hand, imposed a shadow over Raphael's childhood, his presence looming large as both a figure of authority and an embodiment of the rigid expectations that came with their family name. Raphael's early years were marked by a delicate balance between his mother's efforts to provide a normal childhood and the strictures imposed by his father. Francesca filled his days with warmth and creativity, teaching him about music, art, and the beauty of the natural world outside the mansion's gates. She read him stories that sparked his imagination and allowed him to dream of worlds far beyond the walls of their opulent prison. Her teachings were not just lessons in knowledge, but in values. She instilled in Raphael a sense of kindness and justice, often telling him that true nobility lay in one's actions, not in one's lineage. Yet the influence of Fernando was ever present. He viewed Raphael's upbringing as a preparation for leadership, focusing on discipline, etiquette, and the harsher realities of business acumen from a young age. Fernando was dismissive of Francesca's softer approach, often undermining her in front of Raphael to establish a hierarchy within the household. He scheduled Raphael's days with tutors and activities that left little room for leisure or childish whims. Every aspect of Raphael's development was scrutinized and calibrated to mold him into a perfect heir, one who would one day perpetuate the Ramos legacy. Despite these pressures, Raphael developed a dual awareness. He learned to navigate his father's expectations while deeply cherishing his mother's emotional sanctuary. This duality bred in him a resilience and a keen sense of observation. He began to see the cracks in his father's facade of perfection, the undercurrents of tension in the mansion, and the silent cries of his mother's unspoken sorrows. These observations would later shape Raphael into a thoughtful, introspective young man, one who questioned the values he was taught and sought to define his own path. His period of growing up in shadows was critical, for it laid the foundation of his character, weaving the complexities of his upbringing into the fabric of his identity. As Raphael matured into adolescence, the family faced a pivotal decision that would significantly alter their lives: the move to the capital city. This decision, driven by Fernando's desire to provide Raphael with the best educational opportunities, was also a strategic move to further cement the family's social status. However, for Francesca, it represented a bittersweet opportunity, a chance to leave behind the oppressive walls of the mansion by the sea, yet another upheaval from the few comforts she had managed to carve out for herself. The transition to the bustling environment of the capital was both exhilarating and daunting for Raphael. He was enrolled in an elite private school where expectations were high and competition was fierce. This new setting challenged Raphael academically and socially, pushing him to adapt and excel in ways he had never before needed to. The rigorous curriculum and the interactions with peers from similarly affluent backgrounds provided Raphael with a broader perspective on life, one that was less isolated and more dynamic than his secluded upbringing. For Francesca, the move was a double-edged sword. While she was relieved to escape the suffocating atmosphere of the mansion, the capital brought its own set of challenges. She found herself navigating a more complex social landscape, one where Fernando's ambitions for their son and his business were more transparent and aggressive. Despite these challenges, Francesca experienced a renewed sense of autonomy. The city offered her anonymity and a semblance of freedom that was absent in the mansion. She could walk the streets, visit parks, and engage with the community in ways that were previously impossible. However, this new chapter also meant saying goodbye to Irina, the maid who had become her confidant and ally. The loss of Irina's support was deeply felt by Francesca, as she had been a source of strength and secrecy in her darkest times. Their farewell was a poignant reminder of the sacrifices involved in their pursuit of a better life. Raphael, witnessing the emotional toll the move took on his mother, grew more protective of her, deepening the bond between them. This period of transition was crucial for both Francesca and Raphael, as it marked a definitive step away from their past, setting the stage for future challenges and transformations in their lives. As Raphael settled into life in the capital, his exposure to diverse perspectives and ambitious peers sparked a deep personal transformation. The vibrant educational environment fostered a sense of independence and self-reliance that had been stifled under the oppressive watch of his father. Raphael began to question the values instilled in him, especially as he saw the stark contrast between his father's authoritarian style and the more open, meritocratic world around him. Driven by a desire to carve out his own identity separate from the weight of his family's expectations, Raphael pursued his studies with vigor and passion. He excelled academically, not just to fulfill the role of a dutiful heir, but to forge his own path through merit and hard work. His university years were a time of intellectual awakening and self-discovery. He engaged in debates, joined clubs, and took part in internships that broadened his horizons and challenged his preconceptions about the world and his place within it. During this time, Raphael also became acutely aware of the sacrifices his mother had made and the ongoing struggles she endured under Fernando's domineering presence. This awareness deepened his resolve to achieve autonomy, not just for himself, but as a means to one day provide his mother with the freedom she deserved. Raphael's drive led him to graduate with honors, and he chose to further his education abroad, attending Harvard Law School. This decision marked a significant milestone in his journey towards independence, as it was made against his father's wishes, who preferred Raphael to immediately join the family business. The years abroad were transformative for Raphael. Immersed in a completely different culture and surrounded by classmates who had no knowledge of his family's wealth or status, Raphael thrived on his own merits. He developed a robust sense of self, one that was grounded in his abilities and convictions rather than his lineage. His legal education not only equipped him with professional skills, but also with a legalistic way of thinking that questioned authority and sought justice, ideals that were often at odds with the way his father conducted business. Returning home with a law degree and a mind sharpened by experiences beyond the reach of his father's influence, Raphael was ready to confront the familial and business dynamics awaiting him. He was determined to integrate his new values into his professional life and to gradually shift the family business towards more ethical and sustainable practices. This period of Raphael's life was crucial, as it set the stage for future confrontations with his father and efforts to protect his mother, culminating in his ultimate decision to remove her from Fernando's reach and start anew. Upon his return from Harvard, Raphael found himself ensnared in a web of familial deceit that threatened to undermine the very foundations of his existence. His father, Fernando, had always been a formidable presence in his life, dictating not only the direction of the family business, but also the personal lives of his family members, under the guise of maintaining their illustrious legacy. However, it was a hidden letter from his late grandmother, Catalina, that precipitated a crisis that would alter the course of their lives. The letter, found amongst Catalina's belongings, contained a shocking revelation. Raphael was not Fernando's biological son. Catalina confessed in her letter that Francesca had an affair with a former business partner of Fernando's during a time when Fernando was away at a conference. This news shattered the facade of the perfect family that Fernando had strived to uphold. His reaction was volcanic. He confronted Francesca with accusations and bitterness, his wrath fueled by years of suppressed suspicions and the manipulations of his mother. Raphael, upon learning of the letter, was forced to reassess everything he knew about his identity and his place within the family. The revelation was especially poignant given his recent efforts to assert his independence and reshape the family business according to his own ethical compass. He grappled with feelings of betrayal, not only by his mother, but also by the grandmother he had never truly known or understood. Despite the tumultuous emotions, Raphael's legal training and his intrinsic sense of justice compelled him to seek the truth for himself, rather than accepting the words of a letter meant to inflict pain. In seeking the truth, Raphael initiated a discreet DNA test to confirm or refute the claims of his grandmother's letter. The weeks waiting for the results were a period of intense reflection and reevaluation. During this time, Raphael strengthened his resolve to protect his mother, regardless of the outcome, understanding the years of manipulation and control she had endured under Fernando. This ordeal brought Raphael and Francesca closer, as he became not just her son, but her confidant and protector. The results of the DNA test, when they finally arrived, confirmed that Raphael was indeed Fernando's biological son. This revelation did little to repair the emotional damage wrought by the accusations and the betrayal of trust. Raphael was left to navigate the delicate dynamics of his relationship with his father, who was now a stranger in many ways, and his mother, whose past actions were shrouded in mystery and desperation. This chapter in Raphael's life highlighted his growth into a man capable of compassion and leadership, paving the way for his ultimate decision to remove himself and his mother from the toxic environment they had long endured. The revelation of the DNA results was a profound moment for Raphael, confirming his biological ties to Fernando, but doing little to mend the emotional rift that had deepened between them. Armed with this knowledge and aware of his mother's continued vulnerability under Fernando's oppressive control, Raphael's resolve to protect Francesca became the driving force behind his actions. He recognized that the ties that bound them to Fernando were fraught with manipulation and pain, compelling him to take decisive steps to ensure his mother's safety and well-being. Raphael's plan was meticulously thought out, fueled by a combination of legal expertise and a deep-seated desire to sever the toxic dependencies that had ensnared his family. He began by setting up discreet financial safeguards for his mother, diverting a portion of his earnings into a separate account only she could access. This was a practical step, ensuring that Francesca would have the means to sustain herself away from Fernando's reach. Meanwhile, Raphael also sought legal advice on the best strategies to legally distance themselves from Fernando, without provoking a confrontation that could escalate into violence. The situation reached a tipping point when Fernando, in a fit of rage, threatened to disinherit both Raphael and Francesca, making wild accusations about Francesca's fidelity and Raphael's loyalty. It was a harrowing encounter, one that left no doubt in Raphael's mind about the urgency of escaping Fernando's controlling grip. Raphael knew that leaving was not just about physical distance. It was about reclaiming their lives and their right to peace and happiness. The day of departure was fraught with tension and emotion. Raphael carefully orchestrated their exit to coincide with Fernando's business trip abroad, reducing the likelihood of a direct confrontation. He told Francesca they were going on a short holiday to relax and clear their minds, a necessary deception to keep her calm and cooperative. They packed only the essentials to avoid suspicion and set off under the guise of a temporary getaway. As they drove away from the mansion, Raphael felt a weight lifting from his shoulders with each mile they put between themselves and the oppressive structure that had dominated their lives. Yet his heart was heavy, knowing that they were leaving behind a life of luxury for an uncertain future. But in his mother's hopeful smile, Raphael found the strength to move forward. This pivotal decision to protect his mother marked a new chapter in their lives, one filled with possibilities and free from the shadows of their past. The drive away from their opulent, suffocating past was filled with a mix of apprehension and relief. Raphael and Francesca embarked on their journey under the guise of a short vacation, a narrative that kept Francesca from the full weight of their actual escape. As they drove, Raphael carefully broached the subject of their future, revealing bit by bit the necessity of their departure and the grim realities that had compelled him to take such drastic measures. As Francesca absorbed the gravity of their situation, her initial shock gave way to a quiet resolve. She had always harbored a desire for freedom, a life away from Fernando's tyranny and the gilded cage of their mansion. This journey, though born from dire circumstances, sparked a flicker of hope within her. She envisioned a new life where her days were her own, free from the constant surveillance and criticism that had marred her existence for so long. The route Raphael chose was deliberate, taking them through lesser-known roads to avoid any chance of being followed or spotted. They talked little about their final destination, focusing instead on the immediate need to put distance between themselves and their old life. Along the way, they stopped at small towns, experiencing the simple joys of anonymous interactions and the freedom of being just another face in the crowd. These moments, though fleeting, were precious to Francesca, giving her glimpses of the mundane yet profound liberty she had longed for. As night fell, Raphael and Francesca decided to stay at a modest roadside motel, a far cry from the luxury they were accustomed to, but a welcome anonymity. That evening, they shared a meal in the quiet of their room, talking about everything except their past. It was a healing time, a chance to bond not as mother and son, entrenched in a battle against a patriarchal tyrant, but as two individuals rediscovering themselves and each other. The next morning, with the dawn casting a soft glow over their temporary refuge, they continued their journey. Raphael's careful planning and his mother's growing sense of empowerment blended into a silent agreement that they were doing the right thing. This journey was not just a physical relocation, but a mental and emotional liberation, a step towards healing and rebuilding the life that had been denied to them for so long. The culmination of Raphael and Francesca's escape took a symbolic turn, as Raphael decided to make a significant stop at a small, unassuming store in an unknown city. It was here, under the pretense of a simple shopping trip, that Raphael planned to enact the final stage of their liberation. He had chosen this location for its anonymity and the symbolic gesture of leaving behind their old lives amidst the mundane backdrop of everyday commerce. As they approached the store, Raphael's emotions were conflicted. He knew that what he was about to do would safeguard his mother's future, yet the weight of leaving her in such an abrupt manner weighed heavily on him. Inside the store, he directed Francesca to browse through the items, watching her interact with the world in a way she hadn't been able to for years. It was in these small, ordinary moments that Francesca seemed to reclaim parts of herself that had been suppressed. Raphael seized a moment of distraction to place a carefully prepared envelope in Francesca's purse. It contained a substantial amount of cash and a letter explaining everything: his love for her, his plans for her safety, and his hope that one day they could reunite under better circumstances. As Francesca continued to peruse the aisles, Raphael felt the finality of his decision settling in. He knew that leaving her now, while heartbreaking, was necessary to draw any pursuit away from her and to give her the best chance at a new life. With a heavy heart, Raphael approached his mother, gave her a tight, lingering hug, and told her he needed to quickly grab something from the car. His last words to her were expressions of love and reassurance. Then, with every step away from the store, Raphael fought the urge to look back, to undo his decision, to take his mother with him. But he knew too well that Fernando's resources and wrath would stop at nothing to reclaim what he considered his property. Francesca, left in the store with her thoughts and the sudden weight of the envelope in her purse, slowly began to realize the extent of Raphael's plan. As the initial shock gave way to a deeper understanding, she felt a mix of sorrow for the separation and a profound gratitude for her son's ultimate sacrifice. This moment in the store marked a new beginning for Francesca, a life that started not with fanfare but with quiet dignity, surrounded by the simple artifacts of everyday life. After Raphael left, Francesca stood in the store, enveloped in a profound silence that seemed to mark the transition into her new life. She clutched the envelope, feeling the weight of the cash and the letter inside, a tangible link to her son and the life she was leaving behind. As she left the store, the reality of her situation began to settle in. She was alone, truly alone for the first time in many years, but with the freedom she had longed for. Francesca's first steps into her new life were tentative. She found a modest apartment in the small town, using the cash Raphael had left her to pay for several months' rent up front. The anonymity of the town was a comfort. Here she was just another face, not the wife of Fernando Ramos. She took pleasure in simple freedoms, like walking in the park without a bodyguard, or shopping in local markets without having to account for every minute of her day. Each day brought small discoveries and joys that Francesca had forgotten existed. Yet, as the days turned into weeks, Francesca felt a growing desire to do more than just live quietly. She began to explore the community, volunteering at local charities and attending events at the community center. These activities not only filled her days, but also gave her a sense of purpose. and belonging that had been missing from her life for so long. Her kindness and warmth drew people to her, and she slowly built a network of friends who knew nothing of her past, only the woman she was now. This new beginning was not without its challenges. Francesca often found herself haunted by memories of her past life, of Raphael, and the sacrifices that had brought her here. But she channeled these emotions into her new endeavors, finding solace in helping others and creating a new identity for herself. This period of transformation showed Francesca that while her past would always be a part of her, it did not have to define her future. Her journey of self-discovery and reinvention was a testament to her resilience and her desire to forge a path filled with compassion and freedom. In her new life of quiet anonymity and community involvement, Francesca's past unexpectedly reconnected with her in the form of an antique shop, much like the one her father had owned. This small, charming shop in the heart of the town became a place of solace and reflection for her, filled with objects that whispered stories of days gone by. As she spent her days among these relics of other people's lives, Francesca found herself drawn to a particular violin, reminiscent of one she used to play when she was younger, a symbol of the life she once loved before it became overshadowed by control and pretense. Handling the violin, Francesca felt a surge of memories and emotions. She remembered the joy of music, how it had provided a respite from her troubles, and how she had shared this passion with Raphael. Encouraged by the familiarity and comfort the instrument provided, Francesca decided to reintroduce music into her life. She started taking violin lessons at a local music school and soon began playing at community events. Music rekindled a part of her spirit that had been dormant, giving her a voice when words were insufficient. This reconnection with her musical roots did more than just revive old joys. It helped Francesca to heal. With each note played, she let go of painful memories and embraced her present, finding peace in the melodies that flowed from her violin. Her music resonated with the community, drawing people together and forging connections that transcended her past isolation. It was through these connections that Francesca finally felt truly free, not just from Fernando's dominance, but from the shadow of her former self. As the seasons changed, so did Francesca. She transformed from a woman haunted by her past into a vibrant community figure whose strength and resilience inspired those around her. Her journey of reconnecting with her roots taught her that while one can never change the past, they can choose the melody they play in the future. This realization was a profound turning point, providing Francesca with a newfound sense of purpose and a deep appreciation for every new day and the simple freedoms it brought. The transformation Francesca experienced through reconnecting with her roots in music and community involvement was profound. Yet another chapter awaited her, one of revelation and reconciliation that would reshape her understanding of the past. This new chapter began unexpectedly when a local historian, intrigued by her skill with the violin and her story of how she came to the town, approached her with an old letter and a photograph that had been donated to the local archive. The historian explained that the items were linked to a story similar to hers, involving a woman who had left everything behind under mysterious circumstances many years ago. The photograph showed a younger Francesca with a small boy, unmistakably Raphael as a child, triggering a flood of emotions and memories. The letter, written in her own handwriting but never sent, contained heartfelt words addressed to Irina, the maid who had once saved her life. In it, Francesca expressed her deep gratitude, regrets, and unfulfilled promises, revealing a layer of her past that she had tried to bury. This unexpected discovery forced Francesca to confront her past directly, prompting a painful yet necessary journey through memories she had long suppressed. She read and reread the letter, each word a reminder of the life she had fled and the people who had shaped her destiny. It was a stark confrontation with her former self, one that brought both sorrow for what had been lost and a strange relief in facing it openly after so many years. The revelation also set the stage for reconciliation, not just with her past, but with herself. Francesca realized that in order to fully embrace her new life, She needed to acknowledge and make peace with her old one. This process involved not only accepting the choices she had made, but also forgiving herself and those who had wronged her. She reached out to the community, sharing her story more openly, and found that in her vulnerability lay strength. Her honesty about her past struggles resonated with many, drawing her closer to the people around her and deepening her sense of belonging. This period of revelation and reconciliation was transformative for Francesca. It allowed her to integrate the fragments of her past with her present, creating a cohesive identity that was not defined by victimhood, but empowered by resilience. She emerged from this process more whole, more at peace, and ready to face the future with a clear heart and renewed spirit. Her journey demonstrated the power of facing one's history and the healing that can come from embracing one's entire story. Francesca's journey through the layers of her past and her courageous steps into the future culminated in a profound legacy of love and resilience. This legacy was not defined by material wealth or social status, but by the deep, enduring impacts she made on those around her, through her actions and her spirit. As she continued to integrate her experiences and share her life's lessons, Francesca became a beacon of hope and strength in her community, embodying the virtues of compassion and perseverance. In her later years, Francesca focused on nurturing this legacy. She became involved in mentoring programs, sharing her story and wisdom with young women who face their own struggles, teaching them the importance of self-respect and the strength it takes to change one's circumstances. Her home was always open, a haven where friends and strangers alike could find a listening ear and a warm heart. Her influence extended beyond her immediate circle, as her story inspired community initiatives focused on supporting those in difficult situations. Much like her own once had been, music remained a vital part of her life, a universal language that she used to connect with others and express emotions that words alone could not convey. She organized community concerts and music therapy sessions, believing strongly in the healing powers of music. These events were not just performances, but gatherings that celebrated human connection and collective resilience, drawing diverse crowds and strengthening the communal fabric. Francesca's legacy was ultimately realized in her relationship with her son, Raphael. Despite the physical distance that sometimes separated them, the bond of understanding and respect they shared was unbreakable. Raphael, influenced by his mother's strength and guided by her moral compass, continued to strive for integrity and kindness in his personal and professional life. He regularly visited Francesca, each reunion a reaffirmation of the values she had instilled in him. As she reflected on her life, Francesca saw that her greatest achievements were not the obstacles she had overcome, but the love and resilience she had fostered in others. Her journey from a life marked by control and escape to one of freedom and influence was a testament to her character and her commitment to living authentically. Francesca's story, marked by moments of pain and triumph, taught those around her about the enduring power of the human spirit to overcome adversity and create beauty from the ashes of despair. This legacy, built on love and resilience, was her most cherished gift to the world, enduring far beyond her own life.